job in security, and then you got to a certain point, and you're just like, I'm done with this, or it's too routine, or I need a bigger world? Like, what made you make that transition to, like, I'm going to go find a school that's going to help me broaden things?
Right.
You know, how do you make that transition?
Well, I knew that I wanted to get a degree. I felt like there was, my education was incomplete somehow. That's just sort of a personal thing. But professionally, I had gotten a little weary of the grind and the fact that so much of what you do is just this routine interaction, and you get really good at one thing, and that in a lot of cases is all you're tasked with, is the one thing that you're good at. And I got bored. I think there's more to a professional life than that. And so I wanted to be able to bring something new and understand kind of a new field. And I think, you think about like sort of this mashup culture and being able to take genres and put them together. I think you can do that same thing with academic subjects and with, professional interests. And I feel like usability was something where you could combine usability and security and have this whole new set of concerns and ways of looking at things. There's a few people who are kind of on that same boat, and it's a really new area. And there's a lot of new areas like that where people say, hey, we understand this field. Let's look at this field and see what happens when we kind of combine the two. So that cross-disciplinary work is interesting to me because you get a lot of new stuff to look at.
Which leads me to my next question. So now you get to the iSchool, and so the collaboration that went on there, and like having these students from all these different backgrounds and stuff, did that give you a much broader scope, and you kind of just broadened your view of like what was possible or what was going on? I mean, how was the collaboration, and how did that help your learning experience?
Yeah, that working with other students was really an enjoyable challenge. There were a lot of opportunities to learn through working with people from entirely different backgrounds. And you realized sort of what you knew and what you didn't know, but also your biases towards a particular subject, the way you wanted to solve a problem. My final project partner had a completely different background than me. She worked in sociology and ethnography traditions. I was a scientist, basically. And we were both interested in the same topic. So figuring out how to make that work, how do we design a project that allows us both to focus on this topic, but really pursue entirely different research methods? It was I think that was one of the most interesting things I learned. Not necessarily the results of the project, but how do you even do a project like that? How do you support two entirely different ways of thinking to arrive at a conclusion?
Do you feel like that way of opening up your thinking and having to work with other people like that has helped you now that you're moving into a new environment like this, like Twitter?
Sure. I think being able to work with people on a problem is tremendously important to arriving at the right solution. If you get walled off because of what you do and I think more importantly how you go about solving a problem, then you end up with very limited perspectives, and especially in something like security, it's really important to understand how everyone else's interests sort of intersect with yours.
Hold on, somebody's phone. I don't know if it's ours in the room, but somebody. All right, sorry.
It's okay.
Can we go?
I was rambling.
Yep.
What's your undergrad, or what was your first degree in? Like, what's your background?
So, my undergrad degree was in computer science. I was in the EECS program at Berkeley, Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. And my career started as a software engineer. that's when I decided that just being sort of heads down on a computer all day wasn't necessarily for me, and I found that doing security work was a good way to be able to talk about larger issues. And so I really became interested in things like writing about security, presenting about security, working with teams to fix security problems, not just coding all day. That wasn't really for me.
Let me just jump real quick. So you came into the school with a degree in social engineering and a LOLSAC membership, essentially, right?
And a what?
LOLSAC
Yeah, I
membership.
guess you could put it that way.
So you were very different than everyone else. There weren't a lot of LOLSAC fans or social engineers. But there were other people there. Were psychology majors, philosophy majors,
Sure,
things
yeah.
that were very different. So how did you see them? Your perspective was changed slightly, was it not?
Yeah.
You came as a more of a classical, I want to be engineering background.
Right.
With these other aspects, and so it was different for you. It was not like everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to be, I wasn't happy just sort of characterizing myself as the hacker guy who sits in his basement and codes 24 hours a day and drinks Mountain Dew and eats Cheetos. That wasn't me. I knew that even though I was really interested in that field, I was also interested in other fields. So I really appreciate good design, and I think user experience is an incredibly important asset for a software company. And I knew I wanted to have exposure to those things and have some level of expertise in those things. And so it was a natural fit for me to want to learn from my colleagues, because I realized that even though I was good at this one thing, there was a lot more I wanted to learn. And there were some people who were really good at what they did, and I've learned a lot from them, and I continue to. One of the cool results of having gone to the high school is that now I have a great group of friends who we sit down and we're all kind of interested in the same stuff. And so we have some really great conversations and really sort of varied perspectives on a lot of the topics that are the talk of the day.
And I just want to know other than that internship, like the projects that you worked on, was there any big project you worked on during your stint there?
Yeah, so I worked on a couple of research papers that got accepted to conferences. So that was exciting. I worked with some PhDs who are very focused on publishing papers, and I realized that wasn't necessarily something I was interested in. I like the professional environment a little bit more. But I also worked on a final project with online privacy in education. And we got to work with some really interesting organizations, talk to some really interesting people, and try to apply what we learned to a practical situation. And it was challenging to understand how we could help. What can we do with what we know to provide guidance to people to make it actually useful? And that's something that's really important to me. I think that if I'm going to learn about something, I want to learn about it for a reason, and I want to be able to help people with it. And I think we were able to do that. I think the result of our project was useful and novel. And so that was a good way to cap off the program.
So if you had to pick one thing that was it's just to tell me your favorite thing or the best thing that you got out of that school. I know there's many things, but if you just had to encapsulate it as one.
I think the best thing I got out of that school was a great group of people who I know and can talk to, and I respect, and they respect me, and we can stay in touch, and that's really the most valuable thing to me. It's, you know, there were great classes, don't get me wrong, but it's the people really that I'll sort of end up appreciating the most.
Let me ask quickly and succinctly, not long answers here from you.
Sure.
You went back to school. For what reason? I mean, you had undergraduate, you had a job, and what did you expect when you went back to graduate school? What was the motivation? What did you want to walk out of there with? Just short, succinct.
I wanted the opportunity to explore new fields and see if there was something that I wanted to do more than what how much I wanted to do what I was currently doing. That wasn't succinct.
And Berkeley's a big name. I mean, it's a name that opens doors, does it not? I mean, around here, being a Cal grad is a fairly prestigious thing. I mean, did you see the opportunities it gave you?
Yeah, I love Berkeley. I did my undergraduate there. I have nothing but fondness for that school. I think it's the best public university in the world, and the city's great, the Bay Area is great. I knew that it was going to be a good experience just because it's a great school.
So nice you did it twice, as they say.
If they're trying to rhyme, yes.
Yes, so you went back there. You went back because you enjoyed it. You liked it when you were there before, and you expected a similar experience the second time?
I expected a different experience. I thought that being an undergrad in the computer science department was incredibly competitive, incredibly, there were a lot of people who were, let's say, a little bit odd or quirky. You know, you think of the typical computer science student sitting in the basement with, you know, probably haven't taken a shower in a few weeks. You know, that was the experience. I knew that the people I was going to meet at the School of Information were more focused on interacting with people, and we're just going to kind of be more generally interested in subjects that I was.
So it was a good experience.
It was a great experience.
Okay, one last question, unless you guys have anything. Who would you recommend this to? Like, this is partly for our purposes too, just to go out. Like, who's a good candidate for this school?
I think so. People who are equally interested in technology and the way that technology factors into society. And that can end up being a few different areas of interest, but it's a rare mix. You have to be willing to get your hands dirty with coding and setting up servers and various different things, but it's also important to be able to realize that they're all being used by humans, and society is sort of a messy business. You know, people's psychology is difficult to turn into a science in the classic way. So I guess I would recommend it to people who feel like what they're doing right now is too one-dimensional and want to expose themselves to new ways of thinking about things.
No, that's you just gave like 3 great quotes.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, I hope you got
I'm
all
getting
those.
them in.
Because I can't write fast enough. Society is a messy business. No, those are great.
Okay,
That was
yeah.
perfect.